What's going on, everyone? So it's all going according to plan. Reports came out that the Golden State Warriors, the players that are waiting, Al Horford, De'Anthony Melton, Gary Payton II, guys like that, are waiting for the Warriors, right? But now they're getting a little impatient, that they want some clarification, they want some clarity on what's going to happen, right? The reason the Warriors have not signed those guys is because they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with Jonathan Kuminga. If they sign and trade Jonathan Kuminga and have to take back a couple players, or depending on how much money they have to get him, the qualifying offer, depending on what happens with Jonathan Kuminga depends on who they can sign, how many they can sign, what contracts they can give those guys, so on and so forth. So the Warriors can't do anything until they have that resolved, the Jonathan Kuminga thing, one way or another. Whether it's, he takes and accepts the qualifying offer, he continues to play hardball with them, and then ends up, getting the, a longer term contract or signing the 2-year deal or whatever. Depending on how that goes, depends on how they can sign the other guys. Well, again, it's been a while. Now, last month, you get into August, right? It's like, okay, we still like 2 months away from training camp. We're good. It's time. We give them time. We can be patient, right? But then now you're starting to get into September, and you're inching closer and closer to September, and we're 3 weeks out now from training camp being open. It's like, how much longer are we supposed to wait? We're going to be without jobs here, waiting around for you to make a decision on Jonathan Kuminga. So Jonathan Kuminga has the Warriors handcuffed right now, and they're going to have to come to a solution and figure that out, right? Because the roster spot, if they need to get off of him, right? If they take back 2 players or 3 players or something like that to make that trade and get it to work, well, then now they can't sign 3 or 4 guys, right? Because now they have those guys filling in the roster. So a lot can still happen with the Warriors. This is where I think, and I've talked about, the Lakers could really come in and step in and kind of capitalize on this situation. Right? If I'm the Lakers, again, they're free agents. You can speak to them. You can talk to them. You can speak to the agents. There's no tampering. They're not signed to anybody. So if I'm the Lakers, I would be at least calling De'Anthony Melton, calling Al Horford, guys like that. Hey, look, they don't know what they're going to do. We could go and make, the Andrew Wiggins trade right now, open up, 2 roster spots, maybe clear some salary in that type of trade and bring you guys in, and then you guys can be Lakers, and we can go run and compete for this NBA championship and let the Warriors kind of continue to figure out what they're going to do with Jonathan Kuminga, because you could be in a bad spot, and if we end up going and making this move or doing this trade or doing whatever, even if the Lakers don't, you still present it that way. If we end up doing this, we're going to have to sign some other guys. Now now you're going to a bad team or something like that. Now you got to figure out what you want to do. So if I'm the Lakers, I kind of would use this as a leverage point. However, I wouldn't go do the trade until I got the confirmation, right? So let's say you go and you talk to Al Horford and De'Anthony Melton, guys like that, right? And they're kind of we still want to wait for the Warriors. I wouldn't then go do the Andrew Wiggins trade or anything like that. Right, especially because it'd be an overpay, right? Because assuming that trade is the same price, or it could be anybody, even if it's not Andrew Wiggins, let's say it's Miles Bridges or something like that, right? That 3-and-D wing, right? If you can go make that trade right now, but it's an overpay, I wouldn't do it. I'd wait. But if I know by doing that trade, I now get Al Horford and a De'Anthony Melton, now I would strongly consider and probably do that trade. Right? Because it's very different between hey, okay, we'll just use Andrew Wiggins as an example, right? It's hard to go, okay, we're going to trade for Andrew Wiggins. We're going to give up Rui, Dalton Connect, and a first to go get him, or Rui, Gabe Vincent. It'd probably have to be something like that, like Rui, Gabe Vincent, and a first to bring in bring in him, and then now we got to unload Dalton Connect to free up salary space. So you're going to lose Dalton Connect, Rui, probably Gabe Vincent, and a first, right? Yes, you get Andrew Wiggins. That alone might be enough to raise the ceiling to the top, but it's hard to justify. It's okay, well, then who are you filling it in with, right? Because guys like Amir Coffey already got training camp. It's the options aren't as heavy. Now, maybe somebody else gets bought out. Maybe a Nikola Vucevic is hey, I can go to Lakers now. Hey, let's get me bought out. right? And maybe kind of forces that and pushes his way to that. Maybe you're bringing in one of the training camp guys, right? Like an Eric Dixon or something like that, to where, he's a guy that, can be that kind of offensive player for you off the bench. So maybe you can kind of, if he's really good in training camp, maybe you're signing him, right? You'd still have options, but that's not as exciting or potential ceiling raising as a De'Anthony Melton and an Al Horford, who can literally solve a lot of the Lakers' needs right now, give you another point of attack guy. I'd rather have De'Anthony Melton, although there is risk with him. You got to keep that in mind. He's coming off an ACL tear, so there's risk with De'Anthony Melton, but he is a better and bigger kind of two-way 3-and-D type of guard that can initiate your offense, run your offense, play off ball, shoot the basketball. Like, I'd love to have De'Anthony Melton. Now, Horford, he could be our primary backup center, but also play the 4 or 5 for you. So if you're getting out, he'd be an upgrade over a Maxi Kleber, right? So you'd kind of have those upgrades and things like that, and you'd still have, options to maybe make trades, like salary clearing trades or whatever at some point, especially with the Lakers being willing to take on more long-term salary based on recent reports. So the fact that the Warriors players are starting to get a little itchy, or potential Warriors players starting to get a little itchy, right? That could really play to the Lakers' benefit, especially might make it more digestible to maybe make an Andrew Wiggins trade or something like that right now, only if you have that confirmation. Again, if they're kind of like, we don't know, we committed to the Warriors, we kind of want to wait and let them see, then I would just stay the course, stay patient. But if you get that phone call from an Al Horford, you get that phone call from a De'Anthony Melton, and they're like, hey, we're tired of waiting. We're getting a little antsy here. We're getting closer to training camp. We don't want to be left without a job, right? So, hey, if you can open up the roster spots to bring us on, we'll do it. Right. So then now, again, the Lakers now have the incentive to maybe go get that done. Or even just like a salary trade dump, if you wanted to. Maybe you can turn Dalton Connect into something, right? Maybe you find a team that just really likes Dalton Connect. And, but the problem is we've seen those issues, right? Like we've seen teams like, the Dallas Mavericks try to salary dump Prosper. Now, maybe Dalton Connect, because of his scoring outputs that he put out last year, maybe teams would be a little more interested. But then you had like a Highsmith, who is a veteran kind of 3-and-D kind of combo guard wing that every team in the league would love to have, and they had to give up an asset to get him. So that's something you got to keep in mind too. Would you even be able to find a team that would take Dalton Connect? Because they know, teams aren't stupid. They know, if you're trying to get off of Dalton Connect, it's for a reason. You're trying to clear salary for a reason. So somebody's coming. Who is that? Right? So, our team's going to be willing to help you and open up. Maybe you can find a young team that's like, yeah, we'd really like Dalton Connect. A team like the Spurs still has space, and they have the 15 round spot, and they really like Dalton Connect going into that year's draft. So maybe they could use shooting. So maybe you could be like, hey, do you want to just take Dalton Connect from us and absorb them? Boom, there you go. And then now you can maybe free up cap space in order to sign these guys, do that salary dump to where you can bring in, an Al Horford and a De'Anthony Melton, right? Fill in those spots. Now you have your 15 roster spots, kind of play out the season. And then if you need to make some type of trades or whatever, and you'd still have all your expiring contracts, still have everything. And at least it'd be warranted, right? Because I'm not a fan of salary dump trades, right? I'd rather you get something in return, even if it's not ideal, right? I've talked about, could you do, even the Highsmith, right? Could you have went and traded for Highsmith and maybe cleared some salary even with the third team? Maybe have the Nets do that, and then, kind of mutual. Maybe the Nets take Gabe Vincent and you bring in a Highsmith, and maybe go trade for Matisse Thybulle, right? It's you go get a Matisse Thybulle and you send out $15 million. It's a clear $4 million off the books, right? So you're doing a Gabe Vincent and a Dalton Connect, and it's bring in Matisse Thybulle, right? Can you do something like that? Clear some salary to now bring these guys in, and then now you bring in a Matisse Thybulle plus a De'Anthony Melton and then you still have your first and your picks and all that, and Rui and Maxi Kleber or whatever, that now you could go and use if you needed to go get that Andrew Wiggins and really kind of blow this thing up. So Lakers, again, just have to be creative. And look, it's very possible that those guys just wait and stick it out and they just really want to be Warriors, right? That could absolutely happen. But personally, I would like to see the Lakers you got to at least inquire, right? You got to at least, because again, they're free agents. So there's no tampering, there is no nothing, right? They're not signed on paper. They might have a verbal commitment, but a verbal commitment doesn't mean anything, right? Until the Clippers locked DeAndre Jordan in his own house, so he couldn't sign with the Dallas Mavericks. So again, like, if you're the Lakers, right? If I'm Rob Pelinka or Luka, even I'm calling Luka and LeBron and going, hey, like, get on the phone with Al Horford and De'Anthony Melton and talk to them and tell them, like, hey, like, and maybe the Lakers already have, right? Maybe they're kind of like, hey, we'll give it another week or whatever. Because look, the Andrew Wiggins trade narrative is starting to pick up again. Starting to hear a lot more about it. Things are starting to kind of like, hey, wait a minute, like, so there's probably a reason for that. Now, obviously, a lot of it is just like it is expected that the Heat are going to try to clear some salary, so it could just be as simple as that. Like, the expectations is, but it could be like, hey, maybe the Lakers monitored again, maybe the Lakers called in again, right? Like, we're getting closer to training camp, so we're gonna start to see whatever other little moves and stuff. Like, I don't think anything like like crazy is gonna happen. Like, I don't think like Giannis is gonna or Jokic is gonna get traded or anything like crazy like that. But I do think you will maybe continue to see kind of minor trades, minor moves as teams kind of gear up to get into training camp to kind of see what they have. Guys that they're kind of like, we're kind of high on this guy, so let's do that. And then as you get into training camp, right, you're going to have a bunch of guys that because teams are going to have 25 players or whatever, 23 players, whatever it is that are going to be in training camp. They're going to have to cut down into the roster. So there's going to be guys, like whatever, an Amir Coffey again that's now available that you can maybe look to bring in or whatever if you're going to do that. But to me, I just think if you're going, like, it has to make sense. So if you can get a higher end guy like a De'Anthony Melton, like an Al Horford, where we know what those guys can bring, we know the difference that those guys can make to a team and our bench and our depth and our rotation and things like that. Now you're just a much deeper team, much more versatile team, right? De'Anthony Melton, I mean, you can even make the argument to start him alongside Luka. I don't think that would happen because of Austin Reeves, but no, you're just much more versatile. So now the argument makes more sense. Where right now it's like, okay, if you do a salary dump trade, who are you signing, right? Okay, if you do an Andrew Wiggins trade, is it worth overpaying for Andrew Wiggins just to get Andrew Wiggins and then sign an Eric Dixon or something like that? It's like probably not. Right? But now it's like, okay, now if you can do the Andrew Wiggins trade, get back Andrew Wiggins, and an Al Horford and a De'Anthony Melton, like now that's enough to raise the ceiling to where I think the Lakers for sure are a contender. And now you can kind of operate accordingly. But stay patient, stay the course. I just think it's interesting that they're starting to get a little itchy, and that could really play into the Lakers and really benefit the Lakers. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.